This story was submitted by Russell Lala. His YouTube channel name is mncarguy. On the evening of June 23, 2005, my family and I were taking a walk on the west side of Little Falls, Minnesota. It seemed like a normal night, but my family and I learned how things could drastically change in the blink of an eye. I had a pretty normal life as a kid for being 10 years old. Nothing unexpected happened very often. I thought this would be a normal night for my family and I, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Since we were on the west side of town, we decided to see if my dad's boss Chuck was at his apartment. He had recently bought an older apartment building so that he could fix it up. We waited outside the large white building, but nobody answered, so we decided to go to Chuck's dealership to see if he was there instead. This is where Chuck kept over a dozen tigers and lions, as well as a bear for exotic pets. I was always scared to go there. I especially didn't like my dad having to work there every day. After arriving, Chuck wanted to show us an owl that he had recently acquired. His owl was in the same room that the lion, Leo, and the tiger, Georgette's, cage was kept. While my dad and Chuck were talking, I wandered out of the room to look for my mom and brother. My dad signaled me back towards the room because he didn't want me to go off on my own. I walked back into the room. That's when I noticed Chuck holding a hairbrush in one hand and his other hand on the small latch of the black cage's door. I thought to myself, he better not be opening that damn thing. And sure enough, Chuck opened the latch to the cage where the fully grown lion and tiger were together. Even before he could open the door, the tiger shoved the door open, and I saw it coming right at me. I remember turning away from the tiger and putting my hand out behind me to shield myself from it. Hearing nothing but shouting, the next thing I saw after that was being on my hands and knees, looking at the floor, and seeing nothing but blood rapidly dripping down. At this point, the lion came out of the cage too, and bit down on the back of my neck. Then I blacked out again. I woke up to my face and limp body being dragged across the cold cement floor by the lion. I was bleeding out, in immense pain, and not able to breathe or move. My ears felt like they were literally on fire. My hearing was muffled, along with a high-pitched ringing. When I opened my eyes, it was like as if I was looking through a red stained glass window. I could feel its breath flowing across the side of my head, and I could hear it growling. Sort of the same sound a dog makes when it's excitedly chewing on a new bone. Only this was a lion, with my neck. I remember crying and just begging to die or black out so I wouldn't have to experience getting mauled to death. Then, blackness again. I either passed out from my spinal cord being severed, or from lack of oxygen. I don't know. I'm just glad I wasn't alert anymore. I was unable to breathe, or say, or scream anything throughout the attack. After a while, I could hear a guy asking someone if they wanted a ride, and for me to stop biting my lip. Then I heard the sound of being inside a helicopter, and seeing a blinding white light when I tried opening my eyes. I'm sure it wasn't the light everyone talks about when they almost die, because it hurt my eyes, and it was more annoying than peaceful. It was probably a big exam light on the ceiling or something. My body felt tingly, and like I was tightly wrapped in warm, damp sheets. A guy said, "He's awake!" But after that, everything went dark and silent again. The few times I was conscious, I kept thinking, what the F is going on? And why can't I stay awake, say, or do anything? It was scary, and sort of like an Eli Roth horror movie. Nothing a damn 10-year-old should experience. I don't remember anything else until I woke up in the hospital 16 hours later. the first thing I saw was this metal bar to a halo in front of my forehead. I couldn't talk, move, or feel my body, and I just thought, well, this isn't good. I then saw a nurse doing something on the other side of the room, and I tried to ask her if my dad was okay, since he and Chuck were trying to get the animals off of me. She didn't hear me, and I fell back asleep, and woke up a short while afterwards to seeing my mom, dad, and brother standing along the sides of my hospital bed. I was relieved to see my dad there, and I got to directly try asking what happened and if he was okay too. Eventually, everyone understood what I was trying to say, since I couldn't speak and they had to read my lips. My jaw was wired shut too on top of it all. He said he only had a sore wrist. It was about a month later I found out the whole story of what happened and how I got to the hospital. My dad said, "As soon as Georgette got a hold of you, I was trying to pull her off, then yelled at Chuck to help. He instantly picked her up off of you and put her in the cage. That same effing moment, Leo got out and moved you." I was told that while my mother and brother were calling 911, my dad and Chuck were rushing me out the door and into the car to get to the hospital. My dad was driving our Monte Carlo at over 120 miles per hour on Highway 10 in Haven Road, as Chuck held me stable the whole 3.5-mile trip there. The attack lasted approximately 5 minutes, plus a 6-minute drive. Upon arriving at the hospital, my dad and Chuck were confronted by an older man, who obviously had no medical experience, insisting that I be put in a wheelchair. Now, we all know not to move somebody if they potentially have a neck injury. It's common sense. I was lying down in the car and being stabilized the entire time. Still not a good idea, but putting me in a wheelchair with little to no head or neck support is one of the worst things that could have been done. It wouldn't surprise me if that contributed to the severity of my paralysis. I was airlifted from the Little Falls Hospital to the St. Cloud Hospital, where I was for a few minutes before I was airlifted to Hennepin County Medical Center, HCMC, in Minneapolis. I was later transferred to Gillette Regions Hospital for rehabilitation. Ambulances are useless in this situation, especially this time. The driver only caused unwanted hindrance when my dad went to pick my mom and brother up and bring them to the hospital. He even had the audacity to say, "Don't hit my ambulance on your way out. I'll have you arrested," to my dad, like a little bitch. The police weren't helping either, but that's another story. My hospital stay was about 4 months total. After spending a few weeks at HCMC, I was transferred to Gillette Children's Hospital in early July. I spent the remainder of the 4 months there recovering from all of my injuries. The most significant injury I suffered was a fracture of my spine at C1 and C2, which is right below the base of my skull. That alone left me a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck down, and ventilator dependent. I also had multiple fractures of my right eye socket, a fractured jawbone on the right side, severe lacerations on my face, neck, and chest. My carotid artery had been torn apart, which resulted in a stroke. I also endured a subdural hematoma, brain bleed, a tear in the lining of each of my lungs, and air entered the inside lining of my heart, causing it to fill with fluid. I don't understand why I'm still alive, really. You don't know what you've had until you've lost it. You able-bodied people need to stop being depressed since you have the ability to turn things around. It always could be worse. If you would like to hear more about Russell's story, I'll have all the links in the description. There's a link to the news article, to one of his interviews, as well to his website. Go show him a little support and leave a comment on his website. Thank you very much for submitting, Russell. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully sometime in the future, with the advances of science and all, you can get back on your feet again. I can't imagine what you're going through, and I won't even try, but I really do appreciate you sharing your story. If you would like to hear more scary stories, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Halloween special. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.